The night was perfect for Halloween in a small American town. Jack-o'-lanterns shone on the porch steps of modest houses on quiet suburban streets. Costumed children ran from one door to another, their laughter and excited chatter filling the air. It was supposed to be a night of harmless fun and fear, but for one unlucky family, this Halloween night turned into a nightmare. The Wilsons, Father David, Mother Emily, and their two young children, Lily and Ethan, had just finished their traditional pre-holiday dinner and were putting the finishing touches on their costumes. David was dressed as a werewolf, wearing a fur mask and clawed gloves. Emily made an elaborate Maleficent outfit with a horned headdress and flowing black robes. Lily, 8, was a princess, her sparkling dress complemented by a plastic tiara. Little Ethan, only 5 years old, was an adorable pumpkin, his round belly accented by an orange jumpsuit. "So, is everyone ready to head out for candy?" David asked, checking his watch. The kids nodded happily. "Remember, stay close to us and be careful crossing the streets," Emily reminded them. The family headed out the door. The crisp fall air burned their skin as they walked down the sidewalk, the children scooting ahead a few steps. As they approached the first houses, the children's excitement only grew. They ran up to the doors, proudly showing off their costumes and uttering the familiar "trick or treat." Each time, kind neighbors greeted them with handfuls of candy, cooing about how adorable they looked. The Wilsons slowly made their way down the street, their bags growing heavier with each house they passed. As they rounded a corner, they came upon a particularly elaborately decorated house. The lawn was dotted with fake tombstones, eerie mists filled the air, and the cackling of an animatronic witch came from the porch. "Wow, look at that!" exclaimed Lily, tugging on her father's sleeve. "Can we go up there?" "Sure, honey," David replied with a chuckle. He and Emily followed the children up the driveway. After the obligatory trick-or-treat sounded, the homeowner poured each of the children a generous portion of candy. "Thank you. Happy Halloween," the family exclaimed in unison as they prepared to leave. As they continued down the street, Emily couldn't shake the strange feeling that they were being watched. She looked around nervously, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Shrugging, she turned her attention back to the children, making sure they kept up. The Wilsons walked a few more blocks, the children's energy never waning as they eagerly approached each decorated house. By the time they decided to return, their bags were practically overflowing with sweet booty. "Okay, I think we have enough for one night," David announced. "Let's head home and deal with all this candy." The family turned and started back toward the house, the kids jumping around and excitedly chattering about their riches. Emily shivered slightly, still unable to shake off the unsettling feeling. She peered into the darkness, looking for any sign of movement, but the streets were eerily quiet. When they reached their own front door, Emily's breath caught. The lock was picked, the door slightly ajar. Her heart pounded in her chest and she quickened her step, reaching out a hand to usher the children inside. "David, wait," she called softly. "Something's wrong." David paused, his brow furrowed in concern. He carefully pushed the children behind him and slowly opened the door, peering inside. After a moment, he relaxed slightly and led the family inside, closing the door tightly behind them. "Looks like we just forgot to lock the door," he explained, trying to sound reassuring. "Nothing seems to be missing." Emily nodded, though the feeling of unease never left her. As the family settled into the living room to sort through the candy, she looked over her shoulder every now and then, half expecting to see something. The rest of the evening passed without incident, and eventually the children were snuggled up in bed, full of candy. David and Emily got ready for bed, both of them too exhausted to contemplate the strange events of the night. Just as Emily was about to fall asleep, a sudden noise from downstairs caused her to wake up. She sat up, her heart pounding frantically, and gently shook David. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. David hissed. "Heard what?" "I thought I heard something downstairs," Emily replied, her voice shaking. David sighed. "Try to get some sleep, dear." Emily hesitated but reluctantly lay down, pulling the blanket up to her chin. She strained, trying to hear any other unusual sounds, but the house was silent. Convincing herself that it was just her imagination, she slowly drifted into sleep. A short time later, Emily was awakened again by a loud rumbling downstairs. She rose abruptly and David stirred beside her. "What was that?" he asked. "I don't know, but the sound was coming from downstairs," Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She reached for the baseball bat they kept next to the bed and held it out to David. "Be careful." David nodded, clutching the bat tightly, and quietly walked out of the bedroom. Emily followed him, her heart pounding frantically. When they reached the living room, they saw that the large front window had been shattered, and the glass was lying on the floor. "What's the matter?" sighed David, clutching the bat tighter. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the darkness and ran straight at them. David swung the bat with all his might, and the blow struck the body. The figure collapsed to the floor, letting out an eerie howl. "Grab the kids and call the police," shouted David, taking a defensive stance. Emily rushed upstairs. She burst into the children's room, picked up the still sleeping Lily and Ethan, and carried them into the bathroom, closing the door behind them. "Shh, it's going to be okay," she whispered, her voice shaking. The children stirred, disoriented, as Emily fumbled for her phone and quickly dialed 911. "911, what's your emergency?" answered the calm voice on the other end. "Please, you have to send help," yelled Emily. "Our house has been broken into by an unknown person. My husband is downstairs and the kids are locked in the bathroom." "Okay, ma'am, just stay calm. I've dispatched officers to you. Can you tell me anything more about the intruder?" "I don't know. We just heard a rumble and then—" Emily's voice was interrupted as the sound of a struggle came from below, followed by another shrill howl. "Oh God, please hurry!" "The cops are on their way, ma'am. Just stay put and keep your family safe until they arrive," the operator replied in a soothing tone. Emily ended the call cradling her children, who were whimpering in fear. She strained to hear any other sounds from downstairs, but the house fell into an eerie silence. Suddenly, there was a loud banging on the bathroom door, followed by a series of scratching and scraping sounds. Emily's blood ran cold as she realized an intruder was trying to break into the room. She pulled the children to the farthest corner, covering them with her body and preparing for the worst. The sounds of fighting went on for what seemed like an eternity, and the incessant pounding on the door filled Emily's heart with dread. Just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, a shrill siren wailed into the night, growing closer and closer. The thumping stopped abruptly, and Emily heard the unmistakable sound of sirens and screaming voices below. Slowly, she loosened her grip on the children, who were shaking uncontrollably. "It's okay. The police are already here," she whispered, trying to put confidence in her voice. "We're going to be okay." After what seemed like an eternity, the bathroom door creaked open and a pair of uniformed police officers peered in. "Ma'am, are you and the kids okay?" one of them asked. Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yeah, I think so. What happened downstairs?" The expression on the officer's face turned grim. "We apprehended the intruder, but I'm afraid your husband is seriously injured. The paramedics are attending to him now. You and the children had better come with us. It's not safe to stay here." Emily's heart sank as she led the trembling children out of the bathroom and down the stairs. In the hallway, she saw David being loaded into the ambulance, his face and torso covered in blood. As the family was escorted to the waiting patrol car, Emily couldn't help but wonder what had caused the intruder to attack their home on a night meant for innocent fun and celebration. And as the sirens faded into the distance, she prayed that her husband would survive the brutal attack. The next few hours passed in a series of interrogations, medical examinations, and anxious waiting. Emily and the children were taken to the local police station, where they were questioned in detail about the events of that night. A grim-faced officer approached Emily and gave her the latest news. "Ma'am, your husband did not survive. The injuries he sustained were too severe." Emily collapsed into a chair, her knees suddenly weak as she tried to comprehend the horrible news. "Based on the evidence at the crime scene and your testimony, the attacker was an insane man who targeted your family specifically. We're still figuring out the motive, but there's no indication that this was a random act of violence." Emily's thoughts raced through her head as she digested the information she had received. How could this have happened? Who would want to harm her family and why? Realizing the gravity of the situation, she burst into tears and the children clung to her in bewilderment. In the days that followed, the small town of Wilson was shaken by the tragic events that occurred on that fateful Halloween night. Memorials were held in town, and all the residents rallied around the grief-stricken family. But no matter how hard they tried, no one could make sense of the senseless violence that took David's life. The police investigation continued, but leads were scarce. The attacker, a middle-aged man suffering from a mental disorder, had died at the scene. What drove him to attack the Wilsons remains a mystery, and somewhere in the back of his mind, the spirit of Halloween lived on, a grim reminder that even the most joyous holiday can sometimes harbor unspeakable evil.